Hey y'all. I just wanted to show some new things I found with the Unreal Sequencer recently. And this video could be useful for kind of anyone doing animations in Unreal Engine, really. If you've been using the sequencer, let me just get out of this. If you've been using the sequencer to animate things, then you might have run into some similar things. So in my case here, I'm making a first-person shooter game, and I'm actually using the UE4 mannequin. I'm not using the arms, and the main reason I'm doing that is because a lot of my characters I'm using are children of the UE4 mannequin, so it was just easier um, that way. But these practices can be, of course, still used with the UE5 mannequin or third-person animations or anything like that. And in this case specifically, I have these animations that I got. That these ones are for pistols specifically, and I'm using the IK bones now. A lot of systems you'll see on the internet, they'll be using just simple sockets, attaching, say, weapon R bone, or making your own weapon socket, or um, just using the default weapon IK bones. I don't know why they have sockets in here. These are old things I was using, but my newest systems are just using the IK hand bones, which is how a lot of shooter games handle IK, is just by kind of using these bones. So that's what I've been doing, and these animations weren't really set up in the way that I was using them. The one difference was that the IK hand gun bone was zeroed out on the so for example, I have this curve track here, this additive key, and you can see the hand L and hand R IK bones are in the right position before I do anything with the animation. So, but my gun's not in the right position. Now, I could simply just offset the gun, right? Um, but that wouldn't keep things very consistent with what I've already created. And I already have hundreds of other animations that I've created. So the easiest thing to keep things consistent is to have all the animations kind of work the same. And in this case, my hand gun bone, I actually want it in. I want my gun zeroed out on it, and I want this bone to drive the position of where the gun's actually going to sit in the hand. So, for example, if I add back that key, to reset it, you just have to reopen this. So, resetting that curve that I had, I used the curve to kind of set the position of the weapon in the hand. So I essentially just, I knew that all the animations I had, the IK hand bone was zeroed out on the right hand, and that if I applied this same additive layer track to all my pistol animations here, that the gun would be in the position that I wanted it to be sitting in the hand. But in doing that, because the hand L and hand R bones are children of the IK hand gun bone, they also get moved. So now my hands, if I'm driving my hand positions in game based off where these IK bones are, so hand L would be here, it's going to, bring the hand all the way over here, and it might be twisted and backwards because of the way I rotated this weapon. So to counter this, and to fix these kind of things really easily in Engine, what I did is I first set the position of my gun. So I added an additive layer track to my IK hand gun bone, and I set the position of where it was. And I first actually did this in the idle animation, because I knew the idle animation was kind of like my base pose, and that the majority of my animations would share this pose by either returning back to it at the end of the animation or starting at that pose at the start of the animation. So I always knew it was a good place to start. So I set the position of it, and you can see here that my original animation, the IK bones, are not in the right positions. So what I have done is I've created new ones. And if I open up my new idle, for example, you can see my IK hand L and my IK hand R are in the correct positions now. They are in the exact positions that the hand L left and right are. And my IK hand gun bone is now in the position of where I want my gun to be placed. So if I wanted to make any additional edits to this animation, like say I want to lift the arms up or down or move them backwards or something like that, then any edits I would make to this animation in the future would be slightly different because I would, from here on out, I can now use the gun's position to control where the hands are going to be, because my IK bones are in the correct positions. So to get to this point, I'll show you it with a new animation here that I haven't done yet. So I have these walk animations that I have yet to do. If I open this up, I've already applied my track. So my gun is in the right position. My hand gun bone, IK hand gun bone, is in the position I want it, but my IK hand L and R are not. So I need to just edit this animation so that I can um, fix these IK hand gun bones. And the tough part about this is, I could just set the position of them, but I need them to move exactly with this, with every frame. I want them to move the exact same way that they already are. So you can edit with FK control rig in this case. What we're going to have to do is edit in sequencer, and edit with FK control rig won't give you the control rig controls that I had. And this mannequin control rig is actually from the marketplace. Let me find it here. UE4 control rig, I think it's called. UE4 mannequin control rig. It's possible it's not on Fab anymore. I don't know if, oh, right here, control rig mannequin UE4 from Epic Games. This is the one I'm using. If you're interested, that's exactly what I'm using for this. So what I'm going to do is edit in sequencer. I'm going to bake it to control rig, open up my sequencer tab here. And the first thing I always like to do is add my weapon that I'm going to be using as like a base. So if I find that, which I know exactly where that is already, and the best way to do this, in my opinion, rather than dragging it out into the world and having an actor, live in the world, we're going to make this a spawnable actor that only shows up in this sequence when we have this sequence open. So to do that, I usually just select my actor, keep it selected in the content browser, and then add selection from content browser, which will add my pistol here. And you'll see it'll be zeroed out. And most people will just attach it to the animation, pick a bone, and blah, blah, blah. But the better way to do this, in my opinion, is to use constraints, not only to get used to using them and how they work, but also because we're going to be using them a lot throughout this process, but also because it won't, once you bake the transform of the constraint, it won't change the transform back after you remove the constraint. So like once I set the position of the gun up here to the hand, if I remove the constraint, it'll stay in that position. So I can later on use the weapons position to drive where the hands are if I ever need to make additional edits in the future, like I was talking about. So to add a constraint, I need to have the gun selected first. and I want to hit this under the constraints tab, or I guess you don't have to have this drop down, but there's this add constraint button, and I'm going to add a parent, which in this case is going to be my IK handgun control. And you'll notice nothing happened. The position is still the same. So what I need to do now, because the location and rotation, or translation, I guess, is now relative to its parent, I can zero this out. So once I zero all these out, my gun will now be sitting in my hands. Real nice. And I can leave this for now. I really just have this here for this animation, just to kind of make sure the gun is moving right. And if I'm just playing this animation, it looks the way I want it, but you'll notice that these two bones here. So this is my IK hand L and my IK hand R, which I was showing before are in the incorrect positions. Also, the other thing I like to do that I should have done as soon as I created this sequence, actually, but I haven't saved it yet, so it's okay. But before I make any saves to this sequence, there's something to note. So this animation now is linked to this animation sequence that I'm editing. So if I hit save, it will overwrite this sequence and it will change it. Now, I can do that. That's fine in this case, but I don't want to do that because I like holding on to duplicate animations just in case something happens and I need to go back to an older version for some reason. So I like to unlink the level sequence right away. And that doesn't break your sequence at all. What it does is it just makes it so that this sequence is no longer linked to an animation. So saving it won't overwrite any animations. And I'll show you afterwards, after I fix these IK bones, how to save out this animation properly. So, and there's a couple ways you can do it. And yeah, you can see that my IK bones are not in the right position, but I'll just close this because I don't need that animation anymore. I was kind of just using it as a base to start from for my walk animation. So with my constraints set on my pistol and it in the right place, and no longer do I have the animation linked to this sequence, I can start making a little more changes. So I want to first delete some frames. So these three bones at the bottom are my IK handgun controls. Another thing to note that you will probably notice if you download the UE4 mannequin rig, it actually doesn't have the controls in the control rig for these IK bones. These are something I actually custom added. And if you have a little bit of experience with control rigs, it shouldn't be that difficult to add those. But I will just show you quickly. So UE4 mannequin rig, if I open up mannequin control rig. So this is all I added. So at the very end of the all of this is mostly default. The only thing I added was these last three nodes. So at the end of the first thing here, after they set the transform of the controls for the head, I just set transform controls for all of the IK bones. And at the start of the forward solve, right after setting the transform of the bone for the head, I set the transform for the bones of the IK bones from the controls. I believe that's it. It's just these three and these three. And all I pretty much did was copy these nodes and change the names, and then I just added controls for the bones. So those are the only additions I've made to the control rig, which will be needed to do something like this unless you're just using the FK rig, because these bones won't even show up if they don't have controls for them and you have them baked. As you can see, there's no bone hierarchy here. It's only the controls when you bake it to the control rig, so that's something to note. But back to this. So we have our three bones at the bottom, which are my our three IK bones. And all I'm going to do is delete every frame except for the first frame. So, because that's pretty much all we need. And you'll notice now that none of these are moving with it, and that's okay. Because what we're going to do is we're going to take our IK hand gun control and we're going to constraint it to, I'm going to use the hand R for now because I just want to get the position of things proper. And then my IK hand L. Another thing to note too is when I added this constraint, you'll notice the position didn't change. It didn't zero out like attaching something would. So if, for example, attaching the pistol like I was talking about earlier, um, it would, keep its world transform and change that transform to its relative transform on its new parent, which might sound kind of confusing, but if the pistol's sitting at 0, 0 in the world and I attach it to the hand, it's going to zero itself out on that hand. But the parenting with constraint doesn't do that. It will keep its current location in the world that it has saved as a keyframe, and it will just it will stay there, but it will remove the constraint. So then you'll have to manually change the position, which in this case is something that I want. So with this parented, now you can see that bone is moving and the gun is moving, but my IK hand L and R are not. So what I'm going to do is take my hand L control, IK hand L control, and I'm going to parent it to my hand L control. So IK hand L control parented to my hand L control, which is this blue one here. And then my IK hand R control, I'm going to parent it to my hand R control. So now you can see they move as intended, but since the position didn't change, the only thing we have to fix now is zeroing out these transforms. So I'm just going to go through, I don't need to touch the scale at all, just the rotation and location. And I'm going to do that for both the IK hand L and hand R. Now you'll see that my hand L is in the same location as my IK hand L is in the same location as my hand L, rotation and location, and my same with my IK hand R. So when I move this now, you can see since it's parented that bone, it'll move with it. And saving this out, so let's just save the sequence. Because I saved the sequence and I already unlinked the sequence to the animation that I originally baked to it, which was the walk 01, I am going to now save it out as a new one, which is kind of what I have that other folder there for. So going all the way to the top, if you right click on the skeleton that you want to bake out the animation for, so that's a useful comment because, and I say that because the reason it'll only bake it out for the skeleton that you right click on is due to weapons. So for example, I have my SK pistol in here. If this was a reload animation or something where I also needed to animate the pistol in some way or another, then I can do that all right here. I could bake my SK pistol to a control rig if I had a control rig for the pistol, or I could bake it to just an FK control rig, which is its default, and then I can also animate the pistol directly in here with this animation playing, so that the lengths are exactly the same and everything lines up. And then all I would need to do is bake the animation sequence for the pistol separately. So in this case, I don't need to animate the pistol in any way because it's just a walk animation. So I just need to bake the animation sequence for the character. So I'm just going to right click on the character's animation there. And I'm going to save it in pistol. And I'm going to call it a pistol single walk 01. And to bake those both out, most of those settings, by the way, I know I clicked through that really fast. They can just remain default for the most part unless you have something very specific that you know about, but I typically never really change any of those settings. Now you can see that my new pistol single walk animation, the IK hand gun is in the correct position. My IK hand L is in the same location as my hand L, and my IK hand R is in the same location as my hand R. So different than the original, I fixed the IK bones and the positions, and they all move properly. with the hands to how they originally animated. Um, and this workflow is really quick because now that I have this animation, any edits I make to it directly in the sequencer, I can save off, press play, and test it out in a matter of seconds. So yeah, that's how to use constraints in the sequencer and kind of how to fix IK bones a little bit. And just a little bit of tips and tricks with animating in the sequencer. Of course, there's tons more that you can do with this. And now that I have this, some last few notes here before I let you go is now that I have this animation sequence saved, I can close this and I can come back to it at any time as long as I don't delete it. And make sure that's saved. And when I open it up, all the unless I delete this and rebake it, all of my settings are going to stay the same. So, for example, let's say I want to now move the gun. I don't like the position of the gun anymore. So what I want to do in this case is I want to bake out these frames because I need to remove some constraints in this case. So what I want to do is first, let's take the handgun control, and under the constraints, there's this button called Bake, and I'm gonna bake all frames, and you'll notice that all the frames now kind of got baked in, but the constraint still exists. So I'm just gonna first do this with all of my IK bones. So my IK hand R, we're gonna bake all of those. Let's just save that. So now my keyframes are baked. And if I were to remove the constraints here, so just by clicking X, you can see that I still have all of my whole animation. I've now baked the keyframes. So the reason I did that is because I now need to take the pistol um, and I just want to store the keyframes. And I just want to store the first one. And the reason for that is if I don't store the keyframes and I remove the constraint, the transforms sometimes can get messed up because I'm actually not sure why. I guess it's still holding on to the old ones before you set the constraint, and I zeroed these out, so it kind of I don't know. I just saved the keyframe just to be safe. That way, when I remove the constraint, you can see my gun stayed in the same position that it was, which is very important because I want to use the gun now to move the hands, but I still want the hands to move the same way. So with this, the pistol doesn't need to be constrained to anything, but the um, the hand bones need to be uh, constrained in a different way. So I need to go up to my hand L control. And what I want to do is now there's multiple different ways you can constrain this. It really doesn't matter as long as in the end the hands follow in the way that you want. But in this case, I'm going to constrain my hand L now to my IK hand L control. So the opposite of what I did before. And I'm going to do the opposite or the same thing with my hand R and constrain it to my hand R control. So now whenever I move my IK control, my hand control is also going to move. So lots of hand L R controls. So with this, I can now take my two IK bones, which I've already set the position of before, and I can constrain them to something different that I want them to move which in this case is my hand gun. So I'm going to parent my IK hand L to my hand gun control, and my IK hand R also to my IK hand gun control. Now my IK hand gun control, when I move that, you can see my arms move with it and all my controls move properly with it. And because I have pull vectors for my elbows already hooked up in the control rig, all of this moves as intended. So with this positioned, what I want to do is I want to use the gun to move this IK hand gun control because it's ultimately going to set the position of everything else. So I can constrain this as a parent to the SK pistol, and it can just be none. It doesn't have to be, if it's none, it'll be zeroed, but it doesn't really matter because the constraint won't update the position anyways. So with this, now whenever I move the gun, my hands move with it. So this can be really handy, and I do this with all my aim animations. In this case, with my walk animation, I don't really need it. You'll notice also when scrubbing through the sequencer now, the gun won't move with it, and that's mainly because I don't have the gun parented to the IK bone anymore. I have the IK bone parented to the gun. So everything still animates and moves as intended, but the gun is ultimately just driving where the original, the origin position of this is. So for example, if I were to change this to here and save out a transform, you can see the hands move the same way, but they were just, the position of it was just adjusted. So all of this can be really handy for many different things. The main thing that I use it for is I will take a camera and I will add it to my track. I will parent this. So rather than attaching the camera, I will also parent it to my character, which I just grabbed his foot there, and I'll parent it to the head. And then I'll zero out the location. I don't zero out the rotation because the rotation can sometimes be needs to be offset a little bit. So I'll actually just zero that out so that those are even numbers. -90, 0, and 90 is what I needed for my head. And then I usually just move my camera forward a few. If I just, I'm gonna scrub this over here for now. So now I have a good position of my first person view. And if I were to take my pistol, for example, maybe I wanted to line this up so it was centered. Now I fully have that ability. So say this was a walking aim animation and I needed to line it up to the center. Now all I have to do is set the position of my pistol. So keyframe my transform. And now whenever I move, you can see it's animated in that position. So I'll still have that movement that I want. But the location of it is centered to my screen the place I needed it. So hopefully this helps a lot of people out with kind of learning the sequencer and animating in Engine, because there's honestly so many new cool things in Unreal Engine with animating things in the sequencer that I'm pretty much transferring all of my workflow to animating directly in Engine, mainly because it gives me the ability to edit an animation in the sequencer and press play in the matter of seconds and test this animation that I just made in the matter of seconds. So yeah, hopefully you guys enjoyed and keep creating cool things.